You're losing the joy you were born with because you're tricking yourself into thinking life is more bad than good. And what I mean is you're focusing on everything that's going wrong and you're not focusing enough on what's going right. And you can see how that will start to color your experience of the world. You're not as happy as you used to be, in the same way that if you leave a tomato on the bench, it starts to rot and mold. It's the principle of entropy, which is anything left to its own devices will crumble and into disorder. If you're not actively pursuing happiness and joy, your happiness and joy will rot and mold away. Like, you need to be consciously pursuing it. You need to be creating it. Otherwise, you're going to fall into the trap like millions of people do, where they feel like their life isn't actually that good, but they've got everything they need. They've got their necessities. So why is it bad? That's like something I hear more often than, I've got legitimate problems. More often it's, I don't know what's wrong. Like, my life should be good, but it's just not, I'm not quite there. I'm not happy. I'm not joyful. If you're not as happy as you once were, stop focusing on what's going wrong and start focusing on what's going right. If you look at life through the goggles of positivity, even the bad will start to look good. Now, the way that you actively cultivate joy and the way that you prevent your tomato from rotting, so to speak, is you actively realize that happiness is a choice. And that's like a taboo sentence, because people will say they feel depressed and it's out of their control. But barring a small minority, I really believe that those things, saying that happiness isn't a choice, blocks you from enjoying your life as much as you could. All you really need to do is choose to see the brighter side of everything. And I know that sounds naive, but you have to embody that future happier version of yourself. You have to actively choose to look at the bright side in order to become a happy person. Like, you can't wait until you're happy to see the bright side. That's not how it works. You need to fabricate the bright side to the point where you're borderline like weird and crazy, because how could you possibly find a bright side out of this situation? But that is how you actively keep yourself from degrading into this average sadness that everyone finds themselves falling into. You'll see it when you believe it. Wayne Dyer. This even goes further into a phenomenon called the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon, which is the same thing as when you're researching a new pair of shoes and all of a sudden you start seeing them everywhere. You start seeing, or if you take notice of a yellow Toyota Camry, you start to see them everywhere. It's this cognitive bias that starts to occur in your mind. And if you start to think about the positive things in the world more, you start to see them more often, even though they are occurring just as frequently. But it's when you focus on it, you see it more. And then all of a sudden your world brightens up a little bit, because not only are you looking at the bright side, but you're noticing the positive things in the world more often. And I know it's easier said than done to look at the bright side, but I'll tell you from experience that it's a lot harder to not look at the bright side. Life just becomes a series of problems, and genuinely there's more annoyance in your life than positive if you take a neutral standpoint, because there's sort of things getting in your arbitrary expectations way all the time. So you need to fabricate your happiness. Otherwise, you're going to end up like that tomato. Entropy is going to take over, and it's just going to make you feel this dissonance in your life. And there's just no need for it when you can simply choose to see happiness as a choice. choose to notice it more often and consciously boost yourself by fabricating this joy. Like if you miss the bus, you say, oh, I missed the bus, but that means I get 10 more minutes to sit here and sort of just have a bit of a break from the world. And like, there's not really an upside to missing the bus, but when you create this positive frame of thinking, you start to spot them in every single thing. Like if you can't park your car near your house and you have to park far away, you can say, oh, I've got an extra few steps today. And this just turns you into a much more like positive being, and everything just feels a bit nicer. And so even though it's not easy, it's definitely a worthy endeavor, and it's made a huge difference in my life. And I just think it will make a huge difference in yours too. So I hope you enjoyed this shorter style of video. I wanted to make it more conversational than the other ones. I like sort of just riffing on the topics of the newsletters instead of reading them almost verbatim. So let me know if you liked it, if you found this interesting. If you want to hear more stuff like this, then definitely like and subscribe. And thank you for watching.